Midnight, the year 1410. Inside the Forbidden City, 3,000 women hold their breath, waiting for one name to be spoken. Only one will see the Emperor tonight. The rest will wait, or die trying.
The year is 1410, China's Forbidden City. Midnight, 3,000 women hold their breath in dark chambers waiting, because tonight a eunuch guard will come and speak a name. That name belongs to the chosen lucky concubine. Only that woman will go to the emperor's chamber. The other 2,099 women will remain in darkness for another night. Some have been waiting to be chosen for years. Some have long since lost hope, and some are ready to do anything to be chosen, including poison. This system was hidden for 600 years. Journals found in the Forbidden City in 2011 revealed this terrible truth, and what we learned was darker than you could ever imagine. In 2011, during restoration work in the Yongle Emperor's private quarters at the Forbidden City, Chinese archaeologist Professor Wang Li and his team encountered an unexpected discovery. A loose tile in the floor changed everything. Beneath the tile was a hidden passage, and that passage led them to a chain of rooms no one had seen for 600 years. What they found in the first room was a sight that froze the team. Hundreds of journals and letters wrapped in silk fabrics, all in women's handwriting, and the same word repeated in all of them: not chosen. These journals would reveal the Forbidden City's darkest secret. Professor Wang Li wrote in his initial report, "These weren't imperial records. These were personal journals, written by women who lived here. Some entries were hopeful, some desperate, and some described things we never wanted to believe were real." But the truly shocking discovery was made in the third room. There they found personal belongings of more than 200 women: combs, mirrors, jewelry, and small bottles. When those bottles were analyzed, the contents were identified: poison, arsenic, mercury compounds, and plant-based toxins. This discovery revealed the darkest secret of the Ming Dynasty, because in this palace 3,000 women lived, but only one was the true empress. The rest were concubines, and the competition among them was literally a matter of life and death. Before diving into these shocking Chinese truths and the Yongle Emperor's harem system, if you enjoy learning about history's hidden faces, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, because truths like these don't emerge every day. So who were these 3,000 women? How did they end up in the Forbidden City? And most importantly, what did they have to do to be chosen by the emperor? When Zhu Di ascended the throne in 1402 and took the name Yongle Emperor, he was 42 years old. He had seized the throne from his nephew through a civil war, and now he wanted to establish the most magnificent palace in the world to prove his power. The Forbidden City's construction began in 1406. More than 1 million workers labored on the project. The palace complex covered 720,000 square meters. It contained 980 buildings, but the most mysterious part was the inner court, the emperor's private living area. According to Ming Dynasty records, the Yongle Emperor issued a special decree in 1407. Beautiful and healthy girls will be collected from throughout the empire. They will serve in the palace as concubines. This decree would initiate a system that would last 500 years. Ming historian Xia Xie wrote in his records, "The emperor wanted to establish a system greater than all previous dynasties, not just 100 or 200 concubines like other emperors. He wanted thousands of women." This was both to demonstrate his power and to ensure dynasty continuity. But the real reason was much darker. Yongle was obsessed with immortality. He believed that being with young, beautiful women would prolong his life. His personal physician Hu Ying had recommended, The emperor's life force is maintained through the yin energy of women. This pseudo-scientific belief would become the justification for imprisoning 3,000 women in the palace. The selection process was very systematic. Imperial officials toured every province. The criteria sought were very specific. Ages 13-25, beautiful faces, healthy bodies, and, most importantly, virgin status. Families who gave their daughters to the palace received a small payment, but in reality, they had no choice. Refusing the emperor's order meant death. Journals found in 2011 included selection reports. One official wrote, "This year we collected 500 girls. Most came from poor families. Some cried, some resisted, but all eventually accepted their fate." When girls arrived at the Forbidden City, they underwent a detailed examination. Their health was checked, their beauty evaluated, and they were ranked. This ranking would determine their position in the palace hierarchy. There were 7 levels in the concubine hierarchy. Level 1, Huang Ho, Empress, only one, the emperor's official wife. Level 2, Huang Guifei, Imperial Noble Consort, 1-2 women. Level 3, Guifei, Noble Consort, 2-4 women. Level 4, Fei, Consort, 6-10 women. Level 5, Pin, Imperial Concubine, 30-50 women. Level 6, Changzai, Concubine of Promise, 100-200 women. Level 7, Daying, Agreeable Lady, remaining 2,700 plus women. Most women remained at level 7 throughout their lives because climbing in this hierarchy was nearly impossible, and there was only one way to rise: being chosen by the emperor and giving birth to a son. But being chosen was incredibly difficult because the emperor had 3,000 women. How could one woman attract his attention among 3,000 dogs? Every night in the Forbidden City, a ritual was performed. This ritual would determine which concubine would be chosen. The system was so organized that even who could be chosen on which day was recorded. Chief Eunuch Wei Zhongxian's journal describes this ritual. "Every evening at sunset, I receive the list. On this list are the names of women who can be chosen that night. These women have been bathed, perfumed, and dressed in special silk robes. They wait in their rooms, and I go to the emperor with the list. The emperor would review the list and speak a name. That name was recorded in the journal. Then Chief Eunuch Wei would go to that woman's room and say, 'Tonight you are chosen. The emperor awaits you.' But this selection process had very strict rules. The chosen woman couldn't walk to the emperor's chamber. She was wrapped in a large red silk blanket and carried by eunuchs. This was both for purity and because the palace's secret passages shouldn't be seen. One of the journals found in 2011 provides a detailed description of this night. A concubine named Ling wrote, "I've waited for this night for 3 years. Tonight, finally, my name was called. Chief Eunuch came and said, 'You are chosen.' My heart was beating so fast I thought I would die. They wrapped me in red silk. I couldn't see anything. 2 eunuchs carried me. It felt like the journey lasted hours, but actually it was just 10 minutes. When the silk was removed, I was in the emperor's chamber. But this was just the beginning of the night, because being in the emperor's chamber didn't guarantee anything. The emperor could change his mind and send the woman back." Ling's journal continues, "The emperor was sitting on his bed. He was 52 years old. I was 19. He looked at me for a long time. Then he asked my name. I said, 'Ling, my emperor.' He asked where I was from. I told him. Then he asked, 'Do you know why you're here?' I said, 'To serve you, my emperor.' He smiled and said, 'Good, then serve.' What happened next was recorded in Ling's journal in very delicate language, but the meaning was clear. She had fulfilled her duty. The next morning, Ling was wrapped in silk again and taken back to her room, and now she would wait, because if she became pregnant from that night, her entire life would change. She could rise in the hierarchy, perhaps even become imperial noble consort, but the probability of pregnancy was very low, because the emperor was with a different woman almost every night, and most women were chosen only once in their entire lives. Some were never chosen at all. This created a terrible psychological pressure in the palace. 3,000 women were in constant competition. Everyone wanted to be chosen. Everyone wanted to attract the emperor's attention. and this competition often led to dark methods. In the Forbidden City, women weren't just competing with words, because in a place where 3,000 women lived, becoming a favorite was a matter of life and death, and some women were ready to do anything for this. The journals found in 2011 revealed the dark side of this competition. Another concubine, Lin Yue, wrote in her journal, "Mei Ling was chosen last week. Everyone is talking about her now. She's very beautiful and young. The emperor liked her very much. There are rumors she'll be chosen again. This makes me very jealous, because I've been waiting for 5 years. I'm 24 years old now. My youth is passing. If I'm not chosen soon, I'll remain at level 7 forever." This jealousy would lead Lin Yue to a terrible decision. Concubine hierarchy in the palace wasn't just about titles, it was also about living standards. Level 1 and 2 concubines lived in spacious, luxurious rooms. They had personal servants. They wore the most expensive silk clothes. They ate the most delicious meals. But level 7 concubines, they lived in small, cramped rooms, sometimes 4 to 5 people in one room. Their meals were simple. Their clothes were plain cotton, and they had almost no chance of rising. This inequality created deep resentment in the palace, and that resentment sometimes manifested itself with poison. Ming Dynasty palace records include hundreds of mysterious death reports. These reports usually said concubine X suddenly fell ill and died. Cause of death? Unknown, but everyone knew the truth. These were poisoning. How did concubines obtain poison? There were several ways. Method 1, palace physicians. Some concubines established secret relationships with physicians and obtained poisons from them. Method 2, eunuch guards. Some eunuchs were bribed and brought poison from outside. Method 3, palace garden. The Forbidden City's gardens contained toxic plants. Some concubines picked these plants and prepared their own poison. The most commonly used poison was arsenic, because it was easily accessible and its effects mimicked natural illness. Small doses caused stomach pain and vomiting. Large doses caused death within hours. Lin Yue's journal describes how she obtained poison. "I became friends with a palace physician. His name was Dr. Huang. I told him I had trouble sleeping. He gave me medicine. But one day I asked him, 'Doctor, what medicine would make someone very sick?' He looked at me suspiciously, but I smiled and said, 'I'm just curious. I like learning about medicine.' He hesitated. Then he told me about arsenic, how it works, what its effects are. I memorized everything. 2 weeks later, Mei Ling fell ill. Her sudden illness surprised everyone. She had been perfectly healthy, but one morning she woke up with severe stomach pains. She vomited all day. Palace physicians examined her but couldn't diagnose her condition. Mei Ling's journal entry from that day: "I don't know what's happening to me. I'm in so much pain. My stomach feels like it's burning. The physicians gave me medicine, but it's not helping. I'm very scared. Is this the end?" But it wasn't the end, because Mei Ling survived. The poison dose wasn't enough to kill her, but it left her very weak. And for the next 6 months, the emperor didn't choose her. This was exactly what Lin Yue wanted, because now she could take Mei Ling's place. After Mei Ling's illness, Lin Yue began to stand out more in the palace. She was careful to always be in places where the emperor could see her. She wore her most beautiful clothes. She perfumed herself with the most expensive scents. And finally, 3 months later, she was chosen. Lin Yue's journal from that night: "Tonight I was chosen. After 5 years of waiting, finally, Chief Eunuch Wei came and said my name. I couldn't believe it. They wrapped me in red silk and took me to the emperor's chamber. When I saw him, my heart was pounding, but I controlled myself. I smiled. I was graceful. I did everything Mei Ling did, and the emperor liked me." But Lin Yue's success was short-lived, because she had made one big mistake. She had been too obvious. Everyone in the palace knew she had poisoned Mei Ling, and this information eventually reached the Empress. Empress Xu was the Yongle Emperor's official wife. She was the most powerful woman in the palace. All concubines feared her, because the Empress could punish or reward anyone. When Empress Xu learned about the poisoning, she took immediate action. She ordered Chief Eunuch Wei to investigate, and the investigation reached a terrifying conclusion. Lin Yue wasn't the only poisoner. Dozens of concubines had poisoned their rivals. Empress Xu's personal letters describe this situation. The palace has become a nest of vipers. Women are poisoning each other for the emperor's attention. This must stop. If it doesn't, one day they'll poison me or even the emperor. Empress Xu decided to make an example. She ordered Lin Yue and 5 other concubines arrested. They were taken to the palace dungeons, and there they would face terrible punishment. Ming Dynasty punishment records describe what happened to these women. Poisoner concubines were sentenced to death by slow slicing. This punishment would last 3 days. Every day a piece of their flesh would be cut. On the 3rd day, they would die. But there was an alternative to this punishment: permanent exile to the Cold Palace. The Cold Palace was the Forbidden City's most terrifying place. It was where punished or disgraced concubines were sent. Women sent there never left. They spent the rest of their lives in dark, cold rooms. No servants, no good food, no contact with anyone. Lin Yue chose the Cold Palace because at least she would live. Her last journal entry: "Today I was sent to the Cold Palace. I made a mistake. I was too ambitious. I wanted to rise too quickly, and I forgot. In this palace, ambition is more dangerous than poison. Now I'll spend the rest of my life here, in darkness, alone, forgot. This is my punishment." But Lin Yue's story was just one of hundreds, because in the Forbidden City, such tragedies occurred every day. 3,000 women in the Forbidden City weren't guarded by normal soldiers, because normal men couldn't enter the inner court. The only exception was the emperor himself. So who protected these women? Castrated men, eunuchs. During the Ming Dynasty, more than 10,000 eunuchs served in the Forbidden City. These men had been castrated before puberty, some voluntarily, some by force, because being a eunuch in the palace meant guaranteed employment and a relatively good life. But the life of eunuchs was full of pain. Castration was an extremely dangerous operation. 30 to 40% of boys died during or after the operation. Survivors lived with the physical and psychological effects for life. Chief Eunuch Wei Zhongxian's journal describes this. "I was castrated when I was 9 years old. My family was very poor. They sold me to a castration master. The operation was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. I screamed for hours. Then I passed out. When I woke up, I was no longer complete. I was a eunuch, and this was my fate." Eunuchs in the palace had many duties. Duty 1. Guard, protecting concubines and preventing men from entering. Duty 2. Messenger, delivering the emperor's messages to concubines. Duty 3. Servant, meeting concubines' daily needs. Duty 4. Spy, reporting concubines' behaviors to the empress. But eunuch's most controversial role was the night selection ritual, because eunuchs carried chosen concubines to the emperor's chamber, and they waited outside during the night. This was both to protect the emperor and to ensure the concubine didn't escape. Some eunuchs developed emotional bonds with the concubines they served, because they spent years together. They talked, shared secrets, and sometimes even fell in love. But these loves could never be consummated, because eunuchs were no longer men. One eunuch, Liu An, wrote in his journal about his love for a concubine. "I've served concubine Hua for 10 years. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and the kindest. She treats me like a human, not a servant. Over the years, I realized I loved her, but I can never tell her, because I'm a eunuch. I'm not a man. This love is my curse. I'll carry it until I die." But some eunuchs abused their power. They blackmailed concubines, took bribes, and even helped poisonings, because in the palace information was power, and eunuchs knew everyone's secrets. Chief Eunuch Wei Zhongxian was the most powerful eunuch of the Ming Dynasty. He ruled the palace for years. He could make or destroy anyone, and he used this power for his own benefit. Historical records describe Wei Zhongxian as more powerful than the emperor, because he controlled all palace information. He knew which concubine was pregnant, who was plotting, who was being unfaithful, and he used this information to manipulate everyone. But Wei Zhongxian's power would eventually end, because in the palace no power was eternal. In 1420, Empress Xu fell seriously ill. Palace physicians couldn't diagnose her condition, but the Empress knew the truth. She had been poisoned, and she knew who did it. Imperial noble consort Wang. Wang was the Yongle Emperor's favorite concubine. She had given him 2 sons, and she wanted to become Empress. But there was one obstacle, Empress Xu, so Wang decided to remove this obstacle. Empress Xu's personal letters describe this. I know Wang poisoned me. I have proof, but I can't tell the emperor because he loves her too much. He won't believe me, so I must take my own revenge. Empress Xu used her last months to plan. She collected evidence. She identified Wang's allies. She discovered which eunuchs were helping her, and she prepared a purge list. When Empress Xu died in 1421, she left a sealed letter to the emperor. This letter detailed all of Wang's crimes, and it requested punishment. The Yongle Emperor was devastated when he read the letter. He had loved both Empress Xu and consort Wang. Now he had to choose, and he chose his dead wife's honor. In 1421, the Great Purge began. Imperial noble consort Wang was arrested. Along with her, 47 concubines and 200 eunuchs were arrested. They were all accused of poisoning, conspiracy, and treason. Ming Dynasty execution records describe what happened next. Consort Wang and 47 concubines were executed by slow slicing. 200 eunuchs were hanged. Their bodies were displayed in the palace square as a warning. This purge terrified the entire palace. 3,000 women now knew any competition, any conspiracy, any poisoning would be severely punished. For a few years, the palace was very quiet. No one dared to plot. No one dared to poison. Everyone was afraid. But human nature doesn't change. Ambition, jealousy, and desire don't disappear. They just hide, and they wait for the right moment. The Yongle Emperor died in 1424. He was 64 years old. He had reigned for 22 years. And he had left behind one of the most magnificent palaces in the world. But he also left behind 3,000 women. What would happen to them? According to Ming Dynasty tradition, when an emperor died, his concubines had 3 options. Option 1, forced suicide. Some concubines were forced to commit suicide to accompany the emperor to the afterlife. Option 2, become a nun. Some concubines were sent to Buddhist temples to live as nuns. Option 3, remain in the palace. Some concubines remained in the palace to serve the new emperor. Most of the Yongle Emperor's concubines chose option 3 because they had nowhere else to go. Their families had forgotten them. They had lived in the palace for years. The outside world was foreign to them. The new emperor, Hongxi, inherited his father's concubines, but he didn't want 3,000 women. He only kept 500 favorites. The remaining 2,500 were sent to the cold palace or remote palace sections. One concubine, Zhang Mei, wrote in her journal about this period, "The emperor died. Our lives have ended. We're neither alive nor dead. We're just shadows wandering the palace. Some days I wish I had been forced to commit suicide. At least then I would have had a glorious death. But now I'm just a forgotten old woman." The concubine system continued throughout the Ming Dynasty, but it never reached the scale of the Yongle period again. Later emperors kept 500 at 1,000 concubines, but never 3,000 again. Because everyone saw the truth. This system didn't bring happiness. It brought suffering, jealousy, murder, and tragedy. The journals and documents discovered by Professor Wang Li and his team in 2011 revealed the Forbidden City's darkest secret to the modern world. More than 300 personal journals, thousands of letters, and hundreds of mysterious death reports proved the reality of the 3,000 concubine system. In his 2012 report, Professor Wang Li wrote, "This discovery is not just archaeological, but also sociological. It shows us how power can imprison human lives. 3,000 women spent their entire lives in this palace. Most were never chosen by the emperor. Most died forgotten. This is not a romantic story. This is a tragedy. The most poignant journals belong to concubines who were never chosen. One wrote, "My name is Liu Xia. I've been in this palace for 30 years. I'm 45 years old now. The emperor never chose me, not even once. I've spent my entire life waiting for a man I saw only from afar a few times. And now I'm old. My youth is gone. My life is wasted. If anyone reads this, please know we weren't lucky concubines. We were prisoners." Modern analyses show that the concubine system had terrible psychological effects. Constant competition, social isolation, lack of freedom, and hopelessness often led to depression, anxiety, and even suicide. Even today, similar systems exist in some parts of the world. Women imprisoned, forced to serve powerful men, competing with each other to survive. Liu Xia's story hasn't just remained in the past. It carries important messages for today. In 2015, the Chinese government converted the concubine quarters of the Forbidden City into a women's history museum. Every year, millions of people visit and see the rooms where these women lived. At the museum entrance, Liu Xia's most famous quote is written, "We weren't lucky concubines, we were just prisoners who wanted to go home." The Ming Dynasty ended in 1644. The concubine system ended in 1912 with the fall of the Qing Dynasty. But the voices of the victims were never silenced, because history always proves that no power can suppress the truth forever.